My name is Colleen, and this is my kitchen. I've struggled with my weight my entire life. After trying every diet in the book without any success, I came to the realization that diets don't work. I started my journey in January 2010 at a size 26W, weighing just over 300 pounds. By July 2011, I had lost over 120 pounds and reached my goal of a size 12, no W. And I have kept the weight off ever since. What's my secret? Eating healthy and moving more. Now I'm here to show you how you can make food that is healthy and delicious and lose weight just like I have. Because if I can do it, you can too.
Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. Tonight I have a really great spring-inspired recipe for you. We're going to be making an asparagus and Manchego cheese tart. It's a little time-consuming to make, however, it's very easy, simple steps that I'll walk you through, and it's going to be not only in line with asparagus, which is very fresh this time of year, but I'm also going to show you how I make it low in fat, low in calories, and still delicious and very, very good for you. So we're going to start with our crust. We want to go ahead and preheat the oven to 375 Fahrenheit. And I have my food processor out here. You could do this by hand if you wanted to. This just makes it very easy. I have one sprig of rosemary that I'm going to take the needles off of the stem here. Don't like to get the stem in there because the rosemary stem can be very woody. So add that there. And then I have 3 ounces of a whole wheat pastry flour. So this is going to add some nutrition to the dish, a nice bit of fiber, and by using a whole wheat instead of an all-purpose flour, it's going to actually help your body's metabolism because your body has to work harder to break down those whole grains. You want to make sure to use a pastry flour because it's a little bit finer grain than a regular whole wheat flour, so it's not quite as thick and just makes for a flakier crust. So that's 3 ounces of whole wheat pastry flour, and then I have 3 ounces of an unbleached all-purpose flour. And the reason I use unbleached is because then it's just got less chemicals added to it. So add that in there as well. And then I'm going to add a teaspoon of baking powder. For a little bit of extra flavor, I have here 1 whole lemon. Make sure to take that sticker off. And we're going to use the juice in the filling, but I like to use the zest of it in my crust. It just adds a nice little burst of flavor to the crust. So I'm just going to use the zest. You want to make sure whenever you're zesting citrus fruit not to get too far into the white because the white can be very bitter. And the last of our dry ingredients is just a pinch of coarse sea salt there. And now what I want to do is I'm going to just pulse this to let everything, all of my dry goods combine and really chop up that rosemary before I start adding the wet ingredients and making it into more of a dough. Ingredients, I'm going to use 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and then I have 1/3 of a cup of water. I'm going to add that to the oil, and then I'm going to whisk that together so that it's well blended. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to put the food processor on low and slowly drizzle this in there until that dough gets nice and crumbly and thick. crumbly in there. And I'm going to go ahead and set up my space for rolling this out, and we'll come back and do that. So for my crust, I'm going to bake it in this Tart pan. This is a traditional Tart pan. You can find these in most cooking stores. It has a removable bottom, and the reason for that is so you can create this really nice fluted crust and just pop it right out of that when it's done baking. This is a 10-inch Tart pan. You could also definitely use a pie crust or a pie pan if you wanted to. You just wouldn't be able to remove it from the pan at that point, right? So it's a 10-inch Tart pan. I have put a little bit of olive oil spray over the bottom of it to make sure that my crust doesn't stick. And then what I want to do is allow for some allowance, 10-inch diameter, about an inch up. So I want it to be at least 11 inches. I'm going to give myself a little bit of allowance when I roll this out. So I want it to be about 11.5 to 12 inches in diameter. I've used just a little bit of some of that all-purpose, unbleached all-purpose flour. You don't want to use too much, just enough to keep the crust from sticking. And now I'm just going to begin rolling that out until I have about 11.5 to 12 inch diameter. Once I have that rolled out, I'm going to carefully lift it over my Tart pan here. And I want to center it and push it down in there so that it comes flush with the sides of the pan. And to really get that fluted crust on the outside, what I like to do is just take my fingers and push it into those grooves. And then I'm going to take a sharp knife and just trim that crust even with the top of the pan. And then I go around and just push it in one last time. And what that's going to do again, help create that nice fluted curve on the outside of the crust, but also it'll help keep the crust from falling down when I do my pre-bake. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and put this in my oven. Remember, I've had the oven preheating to 375. So I'm going to put this in there for about 6 to 7 minutes, just to let the crust kind of set up. Our filling for our asparagus tart, our crust is cooked up here. I'm not going to pick it up because the pan is still a little bit hot, but it's set up really nicely here. I'm going to keep my oven at 375, and I'm going to go ahead and whip up the filling. This is very quick and easy typically to mix up, and it's going to start with 1 cup of a low-fat cottage cheese. I'm using a 2% cottage cheese. You do not, under any circumstances, want to use a non-fat cottage cheese. Yes, I realize that'll cut some of the fat in the dish, but it doesn't cook well at all. The texture is mostly chemicals, so it doesn't bake up well, it doesn't get creamy, it doesn't even brown. Trust me, I tried it when I first started working this recipe. So you want to make sure to use a 2% milk fat. Then I have 2 ounces, which is right about 1/2 cup shredded of Manchego cheese. If you've never tried Manchego cheese, you're really in for a treat with this. It's a Spanish sheep's milk cheese. It's really good. It's firm, so you can shred it really easily, and it's got kind of this peppery taste to it because it's made from sheep's milk. And so I'm going to go ahead and Add that in there. And then you might recall that lemon that we zested before. I'm going to go ahead and roll it, soften it up, get those juices flowing, and then juice it with my juicer. Let's add a good crack, freshly ground black pepper, and just a pinch of coarse sea salt. I don't like to add too much salt to this because cheese has a lot of sodium in it already. Then I have 1 shallot here that I'm going to go ahead and mince up. Take that papery wrapping off first. And I want this minced fairly finely so that it really blends into the filling well and doesn't stand out. Next, we're going to add 2 egg whites, and what this is going to do is it's going to help bind that filling together and make it nice and firm once it's cooled down. And my dog loves it when I use egg whites because that means there's yolks left over for his dinner. Let's give that a good stir, really break up those egg whites and mix them in so it's well combined. And then at the very end, and you want to do this at the end because otherwise you get a little bit of a chemical reaction from the lemon juice, you want just 1 teaspoon of baking soda. That's just going to help that filling fluff up a little bit in that dish. Once I have that filled, I'm going to take my tart pan here and just put that right in there. Make sure to spread that out in an even layer, just like that. Now it's time for the star of our show, the asparagus. For our asparagus, I have ½ a pound of fresh asparagus here. And I'm going to just trim off about the bottom, 1.5 inches here. Makes it really nice and fresh so there's nothing hard or stringy about the bottom of that. And then I want to take them kind of try to find the middle. So I'm going to cut them in half of what's left there. And then I have my beautiful tart, and I love to arrange this in kind of a sunburst design, alternating with the tops and bottoms of the asparagus. Just like that. Now, do you have to be this fancy? Of course not, but food is not just about tasting good. It's also about looking good because you want to make sure that it's something that you're going to want to eat. Your eye sees it first. Our asparagus and Manchego cheese tart has baked up beautifully here. You can see it's nice and golden brown, a little bit bubbly on the top. And so what I want to do is just pop out that bottom, just like that. And that gives me that nice crust. This is going to serve 4 people. And what I'm going to do is cut it into 4 equal wedges. Now you do want to let this sit for about 5 minutes before you serve it up to let the filling firm up really nicely. I've made a nice side salad to go with the tart. I'm going to serve up a wedge there together, and that's it. Dinner is served. I'm going to go sit down and enjoy my dinner. I hope you'll give this a try. Let me know what you think, and I will see you next time in my kitchen.